Hi Ratna, how are you doing? Welcome to Leaders and Libraries.
Hi Rajiv, pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Lovely to have you on the show. We were to have this a little while earlier, but you got tied up with a lot of work, and happy that you could take some time space and mind space to be part of this today. So glad to have you.
Thanks so much, Rajiv. And I guess the comfort which you gave me and our mutual passion actually, I just could not say no, and I had to really do it. And I'm doing with a
Absolutely.
lot of energy today and a lot of interest.
Superb, superb. I can see that excitement on your face, and I'm always excited to talk to somebody who's a book lover. So before we get into the powerful book that you've chosen, and the only book chosen by you, and no other leader of season one or season two has chosen this book, that makes it very special for the next 45 minutes. Before we delve into it, let me have the honor of introducing you to the audience. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world you will be sitting while you would listen to the guest of the day. All of you were part of Leaders and Libraries season one, which had 33 powerful guests coming and talking on 22 globally powerful books. Season 2 has 40 leaders talking on 40 exclusive books. And we have yet another guest for the day, Ms. Ratna Joshi, head of L&D, Mahindra and Mahindra automotive and farm equipment space. And that's such a lovely space to see a lady who's leading L&D there. That's very inspiring. A multifaceted fast track HR leader that I've seen with 15 plus years of experience, and she's pretty much done that I see across the umbrella of HR and L&D, whether you call it talent management, OD, LNOD, culture building, employee value proposition, DNI, startup, greenfield. Oh my God, the list just goes on and on. That is very, very interesting. And I want to call out to all the young leaders here. All these would not have landed on her lap easily. She would have grabbed it with both her hands. That's a great learning for all the young leaders before we even listen to her for the next 45 minutes. And she's been with this organization for 10 plus years. And in a world where 3 to 4 years seems to be a definition for longevity, 10 years is very, very inspiring. Again, a call out to all the young guys who are looking at jumping organizations. It has its own merit to stay for long with one organization. You'll see her as a regular speaker on multiple forums on LinkedIn, and that's how me and she connected on that powerful platform called LinkedIn. And she speaks on all subjects of interest under HR and LNOD, plus anything which is related to D&I, women empowerment, etc., are her favorite topics. But beyond all this long list that I gave you, kindly ignore all of them, put it aside. What is more interesting, and I'm so happy to have her here, is she's also a book lover like me. So thank you so much, Ratna, for accepting the invitation. Welcome on board.
Thanks, Rajiv, for this wonderful build-up. It wasn't a short introduction, but rather a build-up. So I'm so excited to be with you, and we can get it started.
Superb, superb. That build-up is always important because this is what you've built over the last so many years. And I can tell you, with my years of 21 years and 22 years in the corporate world, not many with 15 years of experience has an impressive build-up that you have on your profile. So all credit goes to you. Relish it, enjoy it. All right, superb. With that, let's get started. My first question to you, Ratna. Tell me, how early did books happen in your life? How young were you, a school going girl or a college going girl, or did you start off when you entered the corporate world as an executive? Tell us something about that.
So reading comes to me as a passion, as a hobby, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And well, I've been a good student, mark scorer all throughout, and it continued right up to my MBA because I'm a gold medalist in HR from Mirma. I was third in my batch. So I think reading and my own takeaways and building up on that have always come very naturally to me. So after I left my school and college, it still continued. And I always made it a point that, I am learning not only from books, but also from interactions, from book summaries, from articles. But yes, deep learning, immersive reading, like the books, like the book that we're talking on, is of course another area I really love. And
Mhm.
I like to maximize on that. Because let me tell you, every book which I've read, and I've read with a lot of passion, with a lot of reflection, I think it has added value to my personality.
Sure.
And I'm not saying just for the sake of saying. And I think today's book is one such great book which has really added value, and we'll understand it in the course of discussion.
Absolutely. So tell me, when you said you're a mark scorer and you are always obviously a front bencher, were you the girl who would always sit in the corner of the bench in the classroom and always be submerged in books and not go out to the ground and play? And people would call you a bookworm, or were you a combo of fun and read as well?
Combo of fun and read, combo of book and party, combo of uh, learning from books as well as learning from interactions with people. I interact with a variety of people. So, I make it a point that I interact with a variety of people, whether it is in a personal space or professional space. So I think that has really helped me. So even in my stint with Mahindra and with
Mhm.
automotive, when I used to travel to dealerships and service stations and plants and our zonal offices or wherever, I used to interact with people to understand what are they doing on a daily basis, you know, what are they passionate about, what are the skills which comes handy, and that has really helped me bring it back in my L&D, bring it back in my business HR partnership role, and
Mm.
also help me evolve as a person with a variety of experiences.
Beautiful. And I'm the best person today for you, Ratna, who can relate to what you're saying, because I was with an automobile company, TVS Motors. I was leading their L&D for their domestic and international business. And I've traveled crazy across the zones and dealerships, and I built the dealership community there. I know what you're talking about. Learning is massive. And the more you go into the field and more you do all the visual exploration, you get to know the business more and you're able to deliver more sitting at the head office. So great work. So tell
A
me
lot
when
of the
you.
myths get busted actually when you're
Oh,
actually face to face with a person, or you're learning from someone's experience, hard earned experience through books or in person. So otherwise, it becomes a little too theoretical, but
true.
one connection can make a lot of difference to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. It also helps you to understand how can you tweak the concept and apply it for the real world, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Beautiful, beautiful. So tell me, you started reading books very early. I'm assuming you would have read some novels and then moved on to management books. So overall, through the journey, how do you think books played a very significant role in evolving you as a reader, Ratna?
I think books, and especially the deep immersive reading,
Mm-hmm.
not the very shallow informative one like we do through news apps and interactions, but deep immersive reading, like we did in school and colleges,
Mm.
really helps you gain insights, right,
Mm.
from others' experience. And those experiences are varied. These people can be sitting anywhere in the globe, right?
True.
So, for example, biographies.
Mm.
When you're reading a biography, you're introspecting. You're walking in their shoes with them
Yeah.
and trying to visualize the situations which they have faced and how you would have responded in those situations, what it would have meant in your life. Now, apart from that, I guess it also helps you with a lot of anecdotes, stories, data pointers. So it
Yes.
adds on to your communication skill also,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
So yes, you become so much more richer with someone else's experience and a variety of experience. So if I have to sum it up, it is a fuel. So reading is a fuel which keeps you going, which keeps you growing, because what it is doing essentially is feeding you
Yeah.
with a lot of thoughts, with a lot of ideas, visualizations. So I think reading is that powerful.
Absolutely. And look at the easy work that we need to do. No research needs to be done. The author has done all this paid work and massive groundwork for you. You only have to consume it with immersive reading. As simple as that.
Yeah, you have to consume it and also draw your essential meaning out of it and try
Mm,
and see whether it is practical or applicable in your current context or maybe in long term, but I'm sure it comes handy even if it's not then and there.
definitely, definitely. Lovely, lovely. So as your journey started, read many books over the time. I'm very curious to know what made you pick this powerful book for the day, The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. Why this?
So let me just share with you why, when did I associate with the book? So,
Hmm.
I was working on one of a very interesting assignment in L&D last year. So I had to put up a journey ground stuff for a shadow board members.
Hmm.
So at Mahindra, we have a concept called a shadow board. So these are young people who are excel in their area, middle management, group of 6 to 8, and we have got 4 to 5 shadow boards. Now I have to put up a learning journey which will make sense for them, which will help them meet the expectations in a much better manner.
Hmm.
So I started interacting with a variety of stakeholders in terms of what are those themes which I can
Hmm.
really add into this entire architecture of or the help them learn better. So that's where a lot of themes came up. I'm not getting into all that, but something which came up very powerfully was now these, if you visualize a shadow board member, the group of 6 to 8 team members who are excelling in their own areas, the function experts, they're
Hmm.
coming together, right? So if the challenge thrown upon me was if you're able to convert them into a successful team, right?
Hmm.
Whatever vision or mission we have for them, or the kind of contribution which they can bring in their tenure as shadow board members will be immense.
Hmm.
So that was my starting point, and I started interacting with my friends from L&D fraternity in terms of let me look at framework, let me look at things which are contemporary,
Hmm.
and how can I really make it a life of this opportunity.
Right.
So started looking at 5 dysfunctions of team. But when I started reading Culture Code,
Hmm.
and it became so immensely beautiful because I could visualize what's going on in my end and what is the author trying to explain through a variety of experiences. The skills which are explained over there are really built up for my learning intervention over here.
So that's how it happened. Beautiful. Look at
So
that. Your
yeah, so
work and
two
neat
three
at
things
work.
which really inspired me in the book, and hence I took it ahead was one of my myths. I think a lot of people carry that myth. Once you have trust with someone, you can become vulnerable.
Hmm.
But the book says that vulnerability is the starting point. It's not the other way around. So we had to really create those in our leadership journey, so to say. So
Beautiful.
yes.
Beautiful. Look at that. It's so lovely, and I'm so happy to hear this, Ratna, because I keep telling people now that I run a book-based leadership consulting house, I keep telling leaders that do not see any of these books as tinkles or chandamamas. Each of them have got techniques and tools and templates and methods that you can just pull off the pages and apply it at work, and you will see the benefit for yourself and for your team, which is exactly what you're saying. In your case, a situation on hand prodded you to read the book, and the book actually gave you solutions back. How beautiful can that be?
Yes, that's how it exactly happened. And I had so many learnings and takeaways from the book that it really, I brought it to the shadowboard journey in the manner I could. And it was one of the flagships, I guess. So we
Lovely.
could not have done a better job if we were not anchoring ourselves in such a powerful framework.
Absolutely. All credit to the author, Mr. Daniel Coyle, there. So let's quickly jump into a couple of things that he's talking about in this book. And the first one that I'm going to talk about, which is very interesting, individual performance and group performance that all of us know of. But the author very beautifully says that group performance completely depends on one particular overarching behavior. And he says it is the feeling that all the members should have that we are safe and connected. How do you see this as a leader?
So I think something very powerful which the author has narrated is why. I mean, why? How it all started in the as human evolution. Now he says that our evolution has, something ingrained in us as part of our evolution is we want to be safe.
Hmm.
So the slightest signal of any risk, our
Hmm.
guards go up, right?
Hmm.
And that's something which it happens unconsciously all the time.
Hmm.
So something which is very important for a group to excel or succeed or perform is, that feeling of, okay, I'm in this place, I'm
Hmm.
amongst these 5 to 6 team members. Am I safe? Am I connected with them?
Hmm.
So, like the author says, it's not about your vision and a strategy and intelligence and this plethora of skills which 6 of you or 8 of you are bringing onto table.
Hmm.
It's more about those belonging cues. Do I belong to this place?
Hmm.
Am I feeling safe? So groups which are safer and
Hmm.
not smarter, not more intelligent are the groups which are succeeding invariably through a lot of example which the author is given in the book,
Right,
right?
right.
So if I can quote, he mentions at a place that successful team, they feel that they're part of a family. And
Hmm.
when you're part of a family, of course your belongingness is much higher.
Yeah.
You can take risks, you can give each other permissions, and you have so many moments of vulnerability which you
Hmm.
can never have in a very formal setting when you're trying to manage a status or
Very
trying
true.
to be formal and not going really deep.
True, true, true. How beautiful, and which is what Patrick Lencioni also talks about in the five dysfunction, right? The first pedestal itself is about absence of trust as a dysfunctional element, right? It's all about vulnerability, and you so beautifully said
Absolutely.
that. Very, very true. It's so right because from the days of hunting that we were, it was always about staying together as a tribe, right? And the moment one person in the tribe is out, you have the other tribes coming in and trying to capture him or her and take him or her away. So they would always feel that safe inside and make them come together, search for food together, hunt for food together. Very, very true. Beautiful. Which
Yeah,
is,
the element of cohesion and the element of interdependence. So we have
mm,
we have developed as being interconnected individuals.
yeah, yeah. Very true. Very, very true. Beautiful. That takes me to another interesting topic that he talks about, and I'm very interested because one of the guests on this Leaders in Libraries came in and we spoke on this book, Delivering Happiness, the Zappos story, and I'm assuming you would have read the book. Many people should definitely read the book of Tony Shea here. With the example, the author very beautifully says, and the CEO of Zappos also says this: my job is to architect the greenhouse. I thought this was a beautiful combination of words. When I read it, I actually read it three, four times to make meaning of every word. I'm going to ask you, Ratna, that how do you see this as one of the key element of designing belongingness? How should young leaders look at it? How should they call themselves as my job is an architect of a greenhouse? Help the young leaders understand this.
Sure. So we just spoke and we just touched upon the element of safety and the element
Mm,
of cohesion and trust, right? And why it is important and how we are built in that manner.
mm,
But for those belonging cues to actually become alive, we need to have interactions, positive
mm,
interactions.
mm,
And they can happen default or they can happen by design,
mm,
right? So if you're actually designing your workplace or wherever you're operating from in a manner that there are more interactions,
mm,
which Tony calls as collisions.
mm.
So the serendipitous personal encounters,
Yeah.
collision. So you're designing a workplace, you're designing your party place, you're designing your settings in a manner that people, there's not no obstruction. There are a
Yeah.
lot of interactions which is happening because essentially he says it is very simple. His fundamentals are very towards people. Interaction is very simple. He says that you just keep meeting people, keep talking to people, and you'll figure it out, right?
Mm.
So okay, so when the collisions happen, the belongingness cues will definitely go up.
Okay. So when those cues go up, there's
And when
obviously.
those cues go up, so when you interact, what typically happens is your eye contact will go up, your proximity to go up, you will watch the other person in his or her setting, and that will enhance the belongingness cue, right? You feel more connected. You feel more familiar, like we saw in the other pointer. And when you're
True.
part of a family, it becomes much more safer. The distance is reduced drastically.
Lovely, lovely. And because of that, I think the collective genius comes out, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Beautiful, beautiful, very nicely articulated. So let's talk about this couple of skills that he's talking about, and I picked up three or four, which I thought was very interesting. And I would ask all the young leaders listening to Ratna here to go and pick this book, The Culture Code, after this conversation, because both of us can do justice by talking about a couple of skills, and not all of them from the book. It's a beautiful book, not to miss, guys. All right. He talks about something called ideas for action after certain segments in the book, right? I'm going to ask you, what are the three top ideas for action that you pick or you would recommend to young leaders under the skill called building safety, which is skill one that the author talks about?
Sure, Rajiv. So, ideas for action is a highlight of the book. The three segments on the three skills. I guess they are very practical and very beautifully explained with examples. So talking about the first skill, which is building safety, and to my mind, what are the top three ideas for actioning it? Is basically three things. The point on overdoing thank yous.
Hmm.
I really liked it because it's so easy. You can always thank a person for a small or big act done in a personal setting, professional setting, but we often don't do that. We often don't value it.
True.
We assume that the other person will understand, or we assume that it was the other person's duty to do it. So why thank you and all? Yeah, but the research says that thank you isn't only about gratitude. It is
Hmm.
rather very important belonging cues, right?
Beautiful.
It creates a sense of safety, it creates a sense of connection, and probability is when you refer back to the person in some other setting, the person will be much more generous.
Hmm. 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 So
So
tell me,
they may not be an immediate response, but you're creating a connection with the person.
true. So I'm going to throw a googly at you, Ratna. Both of us belong to Indian culture. We belong to our parents who don't belong to the modern community. We never thanked our parents. They never thanked us for anything that we did for them. We said, "Beta, मम्मी पापा को थैंक यू क्यों बोलना है मम्मी पापा बेटियों को थैंक यू क्यों बोलना है but today
Yes.
you and me as parents we tell our son and daughters thank you when they do something for us they tell us we try to build this as a culture how do you see this
Absolutely, I agree with you. So we take things for granted, or we
mm,
take things as in a sense of duty, right?
mm,
Associating with a particular position like a parent or a senior, or as part of job of someone, we don't really value the delivery which is done, right? And it's not something which is tactical always. It's not something which is mechanical always. We
yeah
There might be someone who is putting his or her entire passion around it, right? Thinking
true
beyond the role deliverables. So if you are able to appreciate that, uh, I guess it creates that kind of bond. We don't do it often, but I'm sure it has got a lot of benefit, not only in professional setting, because uh, coming from the perspective of creating more group bond, etc., but I guess also in your personal setting it is very important.
absolutely I remember a very vivid story that happened in my life many years back we were traveling friends of mine and we were traveling on a road and we were stuck at a signal for a long time. There was traffic ahead, and the policeman was going crazy berserk managing the entire situation. So it gave us some time to stay there till he says, move on. So he was doing some work, and I was driving the car. So he kind of came close to my car, and I put my hand out and said, thank you so much for doing this great job in this hot sun. Without you, I don't think we would have had a lovely experience on the road. He gave an expression as if I'm an alien. It almost told me that nobody would say thank you to a policeman for the job that he's doing. But I think not that I did a great job, but I'm just remembering of that one small thank you brings such a smile in the other person and creates that cue of belongingness and bonding, right? Immediately it lets me say, sir, aap jao.
Yes, the person feels so good because it comes so unexpected. Like we're saying,
Yeah,
we're not used to thanking for normal deliveries or part of responsibility.
true, true. I think Western culture has beautifully picked this skill and overdone it and done it and really benefited out of that. We should definitely learn that from them. Lovely. Now comes to the next powerful one. You spoke about the vulnerability, and the author talks about a loop called the vulnerability loop. And this loop, he says, is something very interesting, very important for a lot of leaders to try in their career. Why do you think young leaders, Ratna, should start working on this very early on? And how should they start it?
I think it is one of the key highlights and takeaways of the book, at least for
Hmm,
me,
hmm,
because we have grown up in an environment where we want to show ourselves as super competent,
hmm,
prepared for any situation, not fallible, and of course not asking for help, because asking for help to our mind is something in which shows you in a poor light,
hmm,
incompetent, right? And you might feel that the respect of the other person will go down.
hmm,
They will no more look upon you.
hmm.
But I guess the assumption here is that I will know everything, right? And
Uh,
I'm a one man army who will be able to handle any crisis situation all by myself. I'll be able to guide my team or my juniors in any situation because I am know it all. And
Mm.
none of this is true, right? None of this
True.
is true.
True.
So, while this may be acceptable in a mediocre kind of setting, but if you're actually wanting to excel and create success out of team, create those high performing teams, the idea is everyone will have to contribute,
Mm.
everyone will have to ask, seek for help, and do that at the right time.
Mm.
So, what is vulnerability? It is about sending a signal that, yeah, you're not that competent to handle a situation. Maybe you have a shortcoming, you have a weakness, and hey,
Mm.
I need a help. So I'm raising my hand for that.
Right.
And it creates the loop. So it
Mm.
took me a while to understand, visualize how this loop might work. But
Mm.
I understood it as, if I send a signal of vulnerability that I need a help
Mm.
as a leader, someone as a team member will detect that signal,
Mm.
will be able to respond back by signaling his or her own vulnerability.
Okay.
I will be able to detect it back. So a kind of loop is established between me and the team member. So
Mm.
that is the vulnerability loop which Daniel is talking about. Now, how
Mm.
does it help?
Mm.
It helps because we are no more, operating as separate units. We become one.
Right.
Signals are playing, right?
Mm.
So even going to the marshmallow examples, we're just coming up with our own contribution, helping the team then and there without thinking much about it.
True. True.
So seeking and getting help is happening simultaneously without any status.
Mm.
And a relationship of mutual risk, a combination of strengths emerge, which is so much more better than about one person leading and creating a lot of followers, which will eventually won't work.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you rightly said this. I'm imagining as you speak. The loop also creates this unsaid or a said communication that I am successful because of you and you will be successful because of me. That's getting
Absolutely,
communicated.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So we will succeed together,
Mm.
and I need a help over here, and maybe someone has got a better idea, and we can try it out together because
True.
ultimately we have to achieve our group's objective and the group's purpose.
Absolutely. Very true. Very true. I think this is one of the very powerful words for me, Ratna. Again, going back to Lencioni's book. Till I read the book many, many years back, my definition of trust was very different. It was all about history of beliefs, history of confidence, history of gaining somebody's trust, etc. But when Patrick connected vulnerability with trust, it just opened up all the confusions in my head. I said, wow, this is the best definition of this word called trust ever. It's all about being vulnerable and open to be vulnerable.
And if you recollect the aircraft crashes example, I mean, the pilot could come out of the situation only because he made himself vulnerable and sought help at the right time, and he could
Uh,
save lives.
Absolutely. Very, very true. Very true. Very true. I mean, how many of us have the confidence and the courage to do that? You need confidence, you need courage, both.
Lot of courage is needed. So it's easier said than done because we have not seen many examples where people do reach out for help. But I guess it's all about reaching out at the right time, which
Absolutely.
can make a lot of difference.
Oh yes, beautiful, beautiful, lovely. Let's move to the second skill I want to talk about, right? So
Sure.
you've built safety, you've done your job, you've been vulnerable. Now, skill two, again, I'm going back to the ideas for action build. What do you think are the top two or three you want to pick that you think leaders can use?
Yeah, so in this example of vulnerability, and we spoke of the loop getting established, I think it's very important to watch out for two critical moments in a group setting. When
Okay.
the first disagreement happens and the first moment of vulnerability is created in the group. Because when
Hmm.
that creates a lot, it creates precedence.
True.
It actually is a doorway to two possible paths.
Hmm.
First instance, because the way it is handled by the leader will actually decide whether we are in this together
Hmm.
or are we about like
Separate.
winning interactions and status management and one versus another kind of environment, showing competence kind of environment.
Hmm.
So yeah, the way two critical moments are handled. And the second takeaway, which is very powerful, is, and I think not only in this setting but any setting, is in our aim should be for candor and avoiding brutal honesty. I read and reread it, so many times, that when you're giving feedback to someone, it is that your aim is should be to be for candor, and you
Hmm.
should avoid brutal honesty. So what does it actually mean in a feedback scenario is your feedback should be honest, right? But it should be less judgmental, less personal,
Yeah.
and more targeted, smaller, direct, because it is going to create or break the sense of safety in the group.
Beautiful. Beautiful. True. True. Yeah.
So
Uh,
those two takeaways, I guess, those two ideas, or skill which we can practice toward creating a more vulnerable group, will be really impactful.
Lovely. So, what is the challenge in doing this? I mean, it's easy as you hear it, Ratna.
It's easy, so the challenges over here, especially in the context of, say, giving feedback,
Hmm.
which is saying it should have an element of conduct but not being brutally honest, is the way in which you do it, right?
Hmm.
Is the way in which you do it, and segregating person out of the situation,
Okay.
right? Bringing in a lot of empathy, thinking and visualizing and spending your time and thinking from the other person's shoes. What would have happened?
Hmm.
And if such a feedback is given to you in this manner, how will you take it? So
Very true.
leaders are often rushed.
Hmm.
Leaders at times don't know the situation that well. They really don't know the impact of this conversation on the other person,
Hmm.
right? Not preparing well. So all of these things actually lead to you being at times direct, right? More personal or judgmental, or coloring with your own assumptions rather than going by what happened and what made the person do that.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And if you think it is particularly important for your team member, and it is so important for your team member, I think spending a little bit more time over there, time and space, and articulating it in a manner which is less personal and judgmental, more on the activity and the impact which it created, and also kind of clubbing it with developmental conversations as a separate process, is going to be really helpful for the team member.
I think that's the vital one that you said. The clubbing in with developmental conversations is the crux. That's the killer, and you close it powerfully. Yeah. Else you're leaving the person to lurch and figure out what to do with this.
Absolutely. And both of us or all of us want this for us as well, right? From our leaders.
Ah.
So if people rub you the wrong way, or if you really don't know what to do with that feedback, it is not going to help you in any manner. So if you put yourself in the shoe of your team member, you understand that this such a situation has happened and what really didn't work well,
Hmm.
and clubbing it with a developmental conversation and
Hmm.
creating a plan together with the person. I think it really works.
It really works. Very true. Very, very true. Very true. Beautiful. That's very nicely said. I like the way you put it across. Developmental plan together, I think is very, very powerful. It kind of,
Yeah, because it's not only about giving a feedback,
yeah.
right? It's also about the action, the action
Mm,
after that particular situation has happened. Okay, and the results were not as expected. So
mm,
what happened? Was what kind of gap was there which led to this situation?
mm,
Understanding gap, or
yeah,
developmental gap, or skill gap, or communication gap, whatever.
mm,
So I'm just giving some examples. So
right.
understanding that is very is crucial. And how do you create a plan, a simple plan, so that it doesn't happen the next time?
Very true. Very true.
Because it can really impact the morale of the person if
It
it
can.
keeps happening, or if you're not getting the clear message, if you're not getting the required support at the right time.
Beautiful. And even for a moment, if you can elevate this conversation, Ratna, I'm just thinking if leaders start thinking like this with the end in mind and start always working towards creating belongingness cues in teams, what kind of a lofted culture you can really create in organizations, isn't it? I mean, talent can be just attracted left, right, center. Would just walk into work in this kind of a culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's not about meeting your day-to-day activities anymore. It's more
Mm.
about giving your heart and soul, you know, doing much more than expected,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah.
that becomes a part, you become a part of the family with, you
Beautiful.
belong to the place.
Mm,
You're
mm.
sharing a vision.
Very true, very true. Lovely. I can so relate to what you're saying. And now I know what magic must have been happening that would have kept Ratna Joshi in the same organization for so many years.
Absolutely.
And
So it's all the same actually. So I could relate so much with the book. So when you are trusted, you are able to create that kind of trustworthy environment. You don't really call it out on a day-to-day basis, but you actually feel it, right?
yeah,
The
yeah.
way the interaction happens with you, or you interact with others, you assume that you're a part of the family,
Mm,
and you will not leave any stone unturned,
very
right?
true, very true, very true. No, I remember when I joined TVS Motors, before that I used to work with multinational organization. This was my first exposure to an Indian homegrown organization. And I'm a South Indian from South India, so I have my own affiliation to TVS as a group. I've read a lot, heard a lot about them, quality, time, value, and all that stuff. So when I joined, I vividly remember as a leader, my job was to walk around, meet people, get to understand the business. So I would go and talk to people, and one by default question would be, "So how long have you been with the organization?" Answers were like 10 years, 15 years, 12 years, 8 years, 20 years. So after a point, I stopped asking questions. मतलब मतलब ही नहीं सवाल पूछ के वैसे भी 10, 15, 20 से कम आने वाला number. So what's the point in asking? It just told me that something is magical. People have been here for 10 years. That's big. Because from a multinational company background, for me, 5, 6 years used to be like, wow, long time. 15 is like, are you retiring here? It just busted so many myths in my head. And then
I'm
I'm so
sure
happy
they
to
can
hear what you're saying.
verbalize it
Oh,
in their own
yes.
way in terms of what's making them, stay with the organization for we assume to be so long, 10,
Very
12,
true.
15. But if they verbalize, I'm sure they will verbalize on similar lines.
Absolutely. Very true. Very, very true. Beautiful. Beautiful. That takes me to the next skill. And the author talks about the skill three called establishing a purpose. And we have been talking about purpose for many years. And Simon Sinek talks about it in his book, Start With Why. Marshall Goldsmith talks about it in What Got You There Won't Get You There. James Clear talks about it in Atomic Habits very powerfully. So we have books and books written on this. One powerful thing that he says in this book, Daniel, and he also follows this with the next book called The Talent Code, how to lead for proficiency, is a very powerful thing that he talks towards building the skill three. Could you explain to the listeners what is building proficiency and what are the two or three learnings that you've picked up from this?
Yeah. So it is so distinguished and so different the way Daniel has, authored this entire piece on how to lead for proficiency. So coming from the shoes of leaders, we see a lot of examples when the
Hmm,
organization is growing, right? How do you create that sense of common purpose?
correct.
How do you help everyone, each member, behave or deliver in the manner in which you would have done with your
Hmm,
customers?
hmm,
So there is an example of a hotelier. So I mean, his whole dilemma of how do I train a huge number of team members to lead for proficiency? How do I lead for
hmm.
proficiency? How do I make them deliver in the manner I would have wanted?
Right.
So he has put it very simply, and it is so simple but so powerful. Is why don't we create a list of common language and phrases? Why don't we name stuff of what is acceptable and what is not, right?
Hmm.
And create some rules of thumb that in XYZ situations, how should a team member behave?
Okay.
They're very simple,
Hmm.
and it is a large complex group with these few rules of thumbs, which he calls as heuristics, and can actually navigate a complex situation,
Okay.
so-called tricky situation, with
Right.
few rules of thumb. Because goal is ultimately the purpose is all collective, right?
Hmm.
So if
Absolutely.
you are able to name what you need and how the person should behave in a situation, if you
Hmm.
list the priorities and also name the behavior, in a manner which the other person understands,
Hmm.
That's where this proficiency as expected is built in a small team or a large team or a new team in all
Mm,
those situations.
Because the purpose also is very clearly articulated, right? Yeah. And it also tells me that am I proficient to do this or am I not? And if I am, how can I add value to the team? And if I'm not, what can I do to build the profession?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Very true. So, what do you think should young leaders start doing?
So, young leaders, I guess, being smart, being intelligent, being skilled, being, creating that vision and strategy, we all understand.
Yeah.
But something which we have not emphasized so much on, and it is much more powerful, is are those the cues which we give on the
Hmm.
verbal cues, the physical cues, and our own behavior in a group setting. It matters a lot
True.
because tells a lot to the other person, whether the person is accepted, whether the person is a part of the group, whether the person should take risk beyond a point, should contribute beyond a point, how will it be taken.
Hmm.
So a lot of bubbles which are going in the mind of a team members, which is not something being verbalized, but it
Hmm.
is happening, right? All of us are thinking about where do
Very much.
I
Very.
belong to this place. So if that is taken care of as a leader, you are able to create much more powerful team.
Uh,
And before you act, I think these three skills need to be taken care of, because if you're able to create an environment which is safe, if you are able to create an environment where people are free to share their vulnerability, then of course the purpose and language and behavior and coding and creating language, and following rules of thumbs, all that will happen. So
happen.
first build connections, first build an environment, and then the required actions will surely follow.
Lovely, lovely. Very beautifully articulated. I mean, Ratna, I love the way you so crystal clearly are articulating your thoughts. I'm just very, very impressed. And I'm just listening so keenly to what you're saying and every word that you're uttering. It makes
Indeed,
a lot of sense.
the book is very powerful, and I guess it's a lovely read. And I mean, you can read it so many times, and it will give you so much richness
Absolutely,
in your day
absolutely.
to day.
Yes, yes. Tremendous clarity. I mean, three skills is what he's talking in the book, but it's got pearls of wisdom across paragraphs and pages as one reads the book. Great work by Daniel there. So with all that conversation that we had on culture code, and I can keep talking on and on, but my format allows me to put a stop at this point. 45 minutes, we have been able to at least scrape through some elements of the book. And for all the people who listen to Ratna here, this is just a touch of the iceberg. You have a lot more in the book. Please go pick the book, read the book. It can have a tremendous impact. I can tell you, as an ex-corporate leader, plus also as an entrepreneur that I run an organization today, this book is eternal. Read it. Ratna, with all that experience that you have had and the fast track leader that you have been, two laser sharp advices that you can give to the young leaders on this platform.
Yes, something which I have followed even before Culture Code was I used to always ask for help whenever I get stuck. This is something, a signature trait of mine, and people know me that way.
Ask for help.
I will ask for help. Definitely, I'll ask for help because I will never assume that I'll figure it out and keep a set of people in darkness till the last moment. So ask for help, and second thing is keep things simple. Keep
Hmm.
things simple, because if you're able to explain something simply, the idea is you have understood it, and you're able to also create those converts. If you walk out with something so complex that the person doesn't comprehend, the likelihood of it getting implemented, appreciated, is very, very low.
Very true. Very true. So ask for help and always try to keep it very simple. Do not unnecessarily complicate it from those MBA pages and degrees that you have picked up in your education, right? Which is what you're trying to tell all the young leaders. Beautiful. Very, very powerful closure to this conversation. It was a lovely chat, Ratna. It was a lovely, lovely book. Thank you so much for coming on this and talking on this particular book. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I hope you had a good time as well.
Yes, Rajiv, it was a very good interaction, and I really hope the readers could benefit out of it, and I will encourage them to read this book.
Thank you so much for doing that. I will also encourage all of you to go read the book. Thank you, Ratna, for coming on this once again. You have a lovely evening ahead. I look forward to seeing you in Mumbai when I travel there soon. Bye bye.
Absolutely. Look forward, Rajiv. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.